Hello, listeners. Today is January 28th, 2025. Welcome to Voiceover Work. Where do you listen? Today, we're excited to bring you a special episode featuring an audiobook sample from Low, The 7 Ways You Can Deal with Depression by Cyrus Brown. This invaluable resource is available on Amazon, and its audiobook version can be found, of course, on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. In this episode, we'll explore practical and effective strategies for managing depression that Cyrus shared in his book, as well as discuss the importance of self-care, personal growth, and resilience in overcoming mental health challenges. Cyrus Brown's empathetic approach to mental health fosters a sense of understanding and connection with his readers. His writing reflects a genuine commitment to helping individuals explore new ways of coping with depression and discovering their inner strength to overcome challenges. Don't miss this opportunity to gain insights from one of the leading voices in mental health advocacy. Tune in now and find out more about how you can manage and overcome depression. Sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. Thich Nhat Hanh. Welcome to life. It's glamorous, it's glitzy, it's vibrant, and you'll meet people from numerous backgrounds and preferences. Some you'll love instantly, some you'll never want to see again, and some will be constants in your life as the days go by. You'll have expectations from others and for others, and in the pursuit of fulfilling these expectations, or having your own fulfilled, you will undergo a condition that's bound to make your life experiences something that you'd rather not be experiencing. And that, dear reader, is stress. Surely you've heard of it. And if not, then you must definitely have felt it in one form or another without knowing what it truly was. Even now, as you flip through these pages, you must be feeling something welling up inside you that makes you uncomfortable, or a sensation that something is weighing you down and you have no way of shaking it off. So, it helps to understand exactly what stress is and how it is affecting you. Simply put, stress is a state of mind that, if left unchecked, can cause a host of mental and physical illnesses. It affects all age and social groups and affects people on various levels, including personal, professional, psychosocial, and so on. This is largely because of the normalization of stress as part and parcel of our working lifestyle. Most workplaces, whether they're white collar or blue collar, put a lot of pressure on people to fulfill expectations. It could be the expectations of the employer for them to go above and beyond in their work. It could be the expectations from their families to provide the basic necessities, such as food, clothing, and shelter. And let's not forget the expectations of filing tax returns. The fast-paced society we live in is all about being expeditious. Everything has to be done quickly and efficiently, and it's indoctrinated into us from a very early age. It may be school, where learning is thrust upon children via a uniform education system that does not normally take into account each child's learning abilities or difficulties. This also comes from the perils and pressures of performing well in standardized tests in order to be able to secure their future, and especially of ensuring prospects for higher education that could lead to a dream career. A person's life, from adolescence to adulthood, is spent in constant worry. Assignments, exams, projects, grades, reports, all of these continually hover over us like the sword of Damocles. There are several reasons why our stress levels are magnified as compared to the days of our ancestors. With the growing population, the era of competition at the turn of the 20th century prompted us all to get ahead of the others if we wanted to secure our future. Pursuing these goals became a rat race wherein we're never settling for less than the best. And in pursuit of these goals, we lose out on opportunities to de-stress and enrich our lives with healthier pursuits, such as travel, exercise, hobbies, and recreation. Due to this, we become irritable, panicked, and even depressed. Why we're stressed. The unparalleled pressure put upon us by modern society manifests itself in different ways, and we are hardwired not to recognize it as problematic because this is how things are supposed to be. It could be a mammoth workload in order to achieve productivity gains, an obsession with getting ahead of the rest of the competition, and the never ending search for perfection in everything we do. Because of this, we find ourselves with an unhealthy work life balance and end up spending late nights at work, leaving our families neglected, and a lot of cold dinners on the dining table. A lack of our personal presence not only creates an absence of your value in their lives, but also an absence of their positivity in ours. As it happens, stress isn't only an externally affecting condition. In fact, stress is an inherent biological reaction to all the events around us. Though there are several external situations that trigger it, it's important to remember that stress is actually your defense mechanism. It is necessary, but it should not be allowed to overwhelm you completely. In all creatures, including humans, stress is an evolutionary form of the fight or flight reflex, which helps species survive. Even with the early humans, who were hunters and gatherers, this reflex allowed them to overcome the odds. Stress isn't just limited to upsetting experiences or events such as losing a job, not getting paid on time, tension in a relationship, divorce, and the death of a loved one. Stress can also occur in happy situations, such as during a wedding, the birth of your first child, sending your kids to a new school, meeting a major prospective client, and even traveling to a new place. All these events affect us at a physical, psychological, and social level. The amount of stress that is triggered could either be considerable or otherwise. It could be a temporary state, or could turn out to be recurring. Furthermore, our reactions to the sources of stress aren't the same as the next person, so it's crucial to recognize how your stress is triggered and how to face it. These reactions occur normally as part of a fight or flight reflex in the case of a stressful event. According to evolutionary psychologists, this response helps us survive by analyzing a dangerous situation quickly. It tells your body that you are in trouble by increasing the levels of adrenaline almost immediately. This provides you with a considerable amount of energy and willpower to be able to choose the best course of action. This could either be to run away, flight, or face it, fight. The most common signs that your fight or flight reflex has activated includes an increased heart rate, shaking or trembling, pupil dilation, an increase in body temperature and blood pressure, clammy hands, pale or flushed skin, and, most importantly, a sense of shock. Apart from these signs, you may also feel an interruption in the digestion process, as well as some other important bodily functions. The spike in your adrenaline also creates a sense of hyper-awareness, which allows you to become more aware of your surroundings, particularly any movement in your peripheral vision and noises that are low in volume. It's almost as if you are in slow motion, like you may have seen in action movies. This is because the neurons in your brain are accelerating at a quicker pace in order to let you consider all the possibilities and variables for you to make your decision. The adrenal gland floods its hormones through you, and there's an extra rush of blood to your muscles, particularly those that could aid if you choose to run. Once the stress-inducing event has been resolved, your body can take up to an hour to revert back to its normal state of homeostasis. However, this also leads to tiredness and exhaustion because of the exertion, not to mention a feeling of anxiety or apprehension as to whether the problem is actually gone or not. Furthermore, repeated or recurring fight or flight responses to stressful situations can cause hyperglycemia, which may lead to hypertension or type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, the fast-paced world we live in provides ample opportunities for people to get stressed. It could be preparing for a speech or presentation, loud or unexpected noises, meeting a potential new partner or going on a first date, seeing or being in a car accident, and so on. Even though most of these situations are not life-threatening, the fight or flight response kicks in every time there is a stressful incident. In situations where you do decide to fight and your body is required to exert itself physically, your adrenaline rush may cause you to perform feats of extraordinary strength, such as responding to a disaster and helping people who are trapped. Though you may not know it at the time, such exertion can lead to muscle tissue damage that will take a long time to heal.
Considering the topic of stress, 2025 is about to kick in for real. Are you ready to level up your game? Not just in your career or your relationships, but in your mind? Because let's face it, a healthy mind is the foundation for everything else. Think of it like this: you wouldn't run a marathon without training your body, right? Well, your brain needs training too. We're talking about building mental wealth. It's about investing in yourself, in things like sleep, healthy eating, exercise, and managing that ever present stress. And then there's this fifth pillar, the one we often overlook: exogenous compounds. Basically, things that give your brain a little extra support. I'm talking about adaptogens, nootropics, that kind of thing. And let me tell you, I was missing out big time and didn't even know it. Then I was introduced to Magic Mind. It's not just another product, it's a revelation. Their focus shots, a game changer. And now the sleep shot? Imagine how much more you can do with the rest you need. Now, Magic Mind isn't a magic bullet, but it's definitely a powerful tool in your mental wealth arsenal. It's about building those strong mental foundations. And hey, they've got a special deal this month: a bundle of focus and sleep shots at a killer discount of 45% off. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Check it out at magicmind.com/EricJan. That's all caps, ERIC, my middle name, Jan for January. magicmind.com/EricJan in all caps. Make 2025 the year you prioritize your mental well-being. Your mind is your most valuable asset, and it's time to start treating it that way. Invest in it, nurture it, and watch it flourish. Your mind will thank you.
Signs of stress. Whenever we face a stressful situation, our body releases various hormones, such as adrenaline, as a response. We may also notice symptoms such as anxiety and distress. These can feel like a knot in your stomach, a lump in your throat, palpitations, or a racing heartbeat. Though these are all short-term symptoms, prolonged and uncontrolled stress can actually cause damage to your overall health and well-being. You may face ailments including digestive disorders, irritability, agitation, sleep disorders, depression, muscular tension, burnout, isolation, problems in your relationships, lower performance at work, absenteeism, and a loss of self-esteem. This could ultimately lead to the development of critical diseases such as heart and vascular diseases and cancer. It's also important to remember that your nervous system cannot directly distinguish if the threats you face are emotional or physical. Your body is bound to react just as strongly, no matter if you're in an argument with a friend or in a life or death situation. Because our stress mechanism is triggered so often these days, we may end up in a heightened state of stress so much that it becomes our normal resting state. This leads to serious health problems that cause disruptions to our immune, digestive, and reproductive systems. It may also increase the risk of heart attacks or strokes, and could also accelerate the aging process. Not to mention that the effects on your brain will cause you to be more anxious and depressed. You will constantly be doubting yourself. Such health problems also contribute to a lack of sleep, weight problems, eating disorders, and skin conditions. Skin conditions, such as acne, are the most visible indicators of stress. Notice how often you touch your face whenever you're stressed, presumably with sweaty hands. Such frequent touching can easily spread bacteria across your face, resulting in acne. The hormonal shifts inside your body could also contribute to acne development. Stress is known to cause headaches. This is because your mind is thinking over everything related to the event that's causing the stress. Headaches, as well as tension in the neck, become quite frequent and chronic as we move about our lives without getting an adequate balance between work and home. They are further exacerbated due to lack of sleep or rest and dehydration, which are things we tend to ignore whenever we are stressed. The constant exertion also leads to pains and aches across the body, such as in our joints, limbs, and back. Constant work on computers, laptops, and smartphones can lead to repetitive stress injuries that affect our hands, wrists, fingers, and neck. People on their feet at job sites often experience aches in their feet and lower limbs from constant movement and standing for long periods. Other factors, such as poor posture, untended injuries, lack of proper nutrition, and nerve damage, can contribute to these chronic pains. Furthermore, you may also notice a spike in illnesses or allergies, such as a runny nose, colds, sore throats, and fevers, which are all telltale signs of stress. Because it takes a toll on your immune system, you become more susceptible to infections. One study showed that adults with chronic stress showed a weaker immune response to flu vaccines, which suggests a compromised immune system. Another study showed a group of people categorized with high stress to be more susceptible to respiratory infections. Though more studies are required to sufficiently link stress to the wearing down of immune health, other factors, such as poor diet or overexertion because of stress, also contribute to a weakened immune system. Loss of energy levels and chronic fatigue are also the most debilitating of the stress indicators, and certainly the most frustrating. How often have you found yourself in a high-stress situation where you're up against a deadline, but simply no longer have the energy to complete the assignment? We become agitated with ourselves because our body can no longer cope with the demands of the task at hand, and we keep pushing it, resulting in insomnia, digestive problems, and mental fatigue. Factors such as restlessness while trying to sleep, low blood sugar, and dehydration also cause a rapid depletion in energy. High levels of stress also cause digestive issues such as diarrhea, constipation, stomach aches, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, or inflammatory bowel disease, IBD. Aside from how stress can affect your digestion, it can also induce changes in your appetite, which may cause you to either have no appetite at all or have a voracious one that will have you eating comfort food every moment you get. Even if you aren't hungry, you may end up overloading yourself with unhealthy food just as a distraction. Conversely, you may actually avoid eating when you need it the most, particularly when your energy reserves are depleting. Ultimately, that also affects your digestive system, as well as losses or gains in weight. If that doesn't say enough about how detrimental stress can be to you, consider what it can do to your sex drive. Whether you're a man or a woman, stress can actually hamper your libido and arousal, not to mention the levels of sexual satisfaction, even if your partner is delivering completely. You probably won't be in the mood if all you're thinking about is the amount of work you have left at the office. Depression also affects your general interest in things. Both acute and chronic stress lead towards depression. Symptoms include apathy, disinterest, irritability, and so on. Environmental factors, family history, the type of crowd you associate with, and the kind of conversations and discussions you find yourself a part of can also contribute greatly towards depression, not to mention the effect of certain medications. Increased heart rate is also a symptom of high stress levels, as our fight or flight reaction elevates the heartbeat. Undergoing stressful tasks or having to deal with both personal and professional confrontations with high stakes results in the heart pumping more and more blood throughout your body. This means your heart rate is rapidly increasing. This is also because of high blood pressure, thyroid disease, certain heart conditions, and also the increased consumption of caffeinated or alcoholic beverages. You may start sweating more frequently and having increased body odor. People with existing conditions such as pulmonary hyperhidrosis, a condition where a person sweats excessively from their hands, face even more sweating because of stress. The role of cortisol. Despite how stress disrupts our regular life, it is usually exacerbated because of the buildup of cortisol in our brain. Cortisol is a naturally occurring hormone that has multiple functions, such as regulating blood sugar levels in the cells. It also contributes greatly to the function of the hippocampus, a part of the brain instrumental in storing and processing memories. Due to chronic stress, the body ends up making more cortisol that it can release, which can wear down the brain's functioning capabilities. Stress has been observed to disrupt synapse regulation. This can cause a lack of sociability and dislike in social interactions. It can also kill brain cells and has a shrinking effect on the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain that's responsible for learning and memory. As the prefrontal cortex shrinks, the size of the amygdala increases because of stress, making the brain even more agitated in stressful situations. This will ultimately lead you towards depression, as well as poor coping abilities and physical illness. Stress can prove to be overwhelming if you have poor coping skills, which can cause a constant bad mood and decrease in productivity, not to mention trouble with your personal relationships. Reducing stress. The key here is to be able to properly manage your stress in order to avoid the harmful effects it can potentially cause. On a positive note, stress is actually useful if you need to improve or boost your concentration upon a task. In this case, it helps to increase your productivity and may enhance your creativity. Under stress, we find new and creative methods to work smart, not hard, which also leads to developing new skills such as time management, prioritization, delegation, and so on. First, keep in mind that everyone reacts differently to stress, so there isn't just one particular method to manage it. Therefore, you need to learn how to gain control over it using a method that suits you so that you're able to manage it properly. Let's start with recognizing what exactly triggers your stress. Once you identify those triggers, keep a sharp eye out for the symptoms we reviewed above and make note of which of those affect you the most. Then you should start discussing the cause of your stress, i.e., the problems themselves, with people who have your best interests at heart and whose judgment you can trust. This will help you a great deal as your stress automatically lessens once you unburden yourself with someone who will listen to you without judging or interrupting. If the need arises, you should also consult with a professional therapist to get a more informed opinion, as well as learn about effective techniques to manage your stress. It's also helpful to discuss the issues that are driving you up the wall, especially if they're work-related. Having a conversation with your coworkers, particularly your peers or immediate managers, can help you bring the issues out in the open. This will also provide you with an opportunity to get much needed input from a different perspective. Because stress tends to hinder our perception of things, it never hurts to get a fresh set of eyes to look into the problem. Also, being in a leadership role puts a different kind of stress on you that requires ensuring that the task or project succeeds, in which case, you might want to hold your cards close to your chest. However, by being trusting of your team's abilities, you should be able to easily delegate any tasks that you feel can be assigned. This helps take a lot of pressure off of you, but also shows you to be a capable leader. Different exercise techniques are known to release the tension that builds up due to stress and can go a long way to help you regain your sense of composure and clarity. It could be doing high intensity exercise or taking a yoga class, going out for a pleasant walk in the park, or even hitting a punching bag. You'll feel the tension venting out every time you decide to take a moment and escape from the situation that is causing you stress. Your mind also plays a part, as letting things get to you also causes a lot of stress, particularly the things that are out of your control. Looking for alternatives or solutions should be your priority, rather than dwelling on what isn't working for you. You should also look into how you can use your relaxation response. It actually isn't very hard to train your brain to relax in stressful situations, but it does require practice. The first thing you should do is take deep breaths and learn to control your breathing. Practice how you pace your breathing, and you'll be able to cool down whenever the symptoms and signs of stress start becoming obvious. Of course, that doesn't mean you need to dive headfirst into stressful situations just so you can practice this. Breathing exercises can be practiced when you're calm. This will help you regain your focus and clarity whenever you are actually in a stressful situation. You're training your brain to associate these breathing exercises with a sense of calm. This will make it easier to think back to a calmer and happier state when faced with a stressful situation. Another very important but relatively unknown stress response is called freeze and fawn, which is commonly associated with fight or flight. This is displayed by animals, such as possums, that play dead whenever they sense danger from a predator. Sensing them in a freeze state, the predators will likely leave them alone, as there's no sport in it for them. This is where the famous adage, playing possum, comes from. Possums are incredibly well skilled at making no movements whatsoever in the freeze state. The other response is fawn, which is an adrenal reaction to being pushed into a situation where you find it easier to give in. This is where the yes man mentality comes in, and they decide that the person making the demand is correct, and therefore it is what they should do. Because of the fawn state, we immediately say yes and accept our fate. This can happen when your manager asks you to stay late, and you automatically agree, even if you really don't want to, or have other plans. So, whether you fall under the category of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, it is likely that you're faced with stressful situations in your life, both at home and at work. It's also likely that you may be dealing negatively with these situations, which is why it's recommended to find a healthier or safer environment that will keep you away from stressful situations. Spending time with your family, or even taking time for yourself to engage in hobbies, helps a lot with de-stressing. Creative hobbies, such as art, writing, crafting, working on do-it-yourself projects, and so on, prove to be therapeutic, as do doing chores around the house and organizing. And here's something you may not have considered: taking the time to properly poop. Oh, yes, we are definitely going there. As we've seen before, research is unearthing the link between stress and constipation. Stress can trigger or exacerbate gastrointestinal symptoms such as stomach pain, nausea, irregular bowel movements, and constipation. Researchers have observed that the stress hormone could contribute to constipation, as some of the common causes include dehydration, poor diet, insufficient fiber intake, and a lack of physical activity. When you find yourself in a stressful situation, a hormone called epinephrine is released from your adrenal glands, which plays a role in your fight or flight response. This hormone causes the body to divert blood flow to the vital organs from the intestines, which results in a slowdown in your intestinal movements. Along with epinephrine, the body also releases corticotropin releasing factor, CRF, in the bowels, which can further slow down intestinal movements and even cause the intestines to become inflamed. Additionally, stress can cause an increase in intestinal permeability, which allows inflammatory compounds to enter the intestines. This results in a feeling of abdominal fullness. The result? Constipation. Psychological stress leads to physical symptoms, such as constipation. It's called a somatic symptom and may be observed if you have less than 3 bowel movements per week, or if they're difficult or painful. It may even feel like you're not able to empty your bowels. This results in dry or lumpy stool. Furthermore, stress is likely to cause you to eat an unhealthy diet, as well as forego sleep or exercise. Worse still, you may even forget to stay hydrated. All of these can contribute to constipation. In order to treat stress-related constipation, you should seriously consider improving your diet by eating a lot of fiber and drinking plenty of fluids. Avoiding items high in sugar and fat, as well as cigarettes and alcohol, reduces the chances of constipation and stress. Along with that, keep yourself physically active through exercise. This way, you'll be able to make sure your intestinal movements continue. And, as we've seen earlier, such measures can also greatly help your mental health in order to manage your stress levels.
In today's episode, we've explored the impact of stress in our society and discussed how depression affects many individuals. We've also highlighted the role that cortisol plays in our bodies and shared some practical strategies from Cyrus Brown's book, Low, for dealing with these challenges. If you're feeling overwhelmed by stress or struggling with depression, remember that help is available. Consider reading Low and exploring its 7 ways to manage your mental health. Don't hesitate to reach out to friends, family members, or mental health professionals if you need support.